back to the Irish Mag Show, episode 123. My name is Paul. I am joined once more by Alan and Crisho of the Irish Mags. The equivalent of Newcastle United's home form is how we're feeling. Doom, gloom, and getting worse by the week. Lads, dare I ask, Al, how are you doing? It was your stag last weekend, and everything went well, I would think, except for things that have transpired on the pitch in front of us in St. James's Park.
Yeah, great weekend apart from the actual football that we went to go watch. But what can you do? We certainly drowned our sorrows after the game, but put a bit of a dampener on a great weekend.
It sure did. Temporarily anyway, Crisho, I think it's fair to say we kind of moved on from it fairly quickly, I think is the only way we could do it. We put it in the back of our minds.
I think by the time we got to the Bobby Robson statue, and I think we were all in agreement, right now it's Al's stag proper. Let's just go for it. We all know it was dreadful, but we had a really nice night lined up. So let's not let players that don't want to play for Newcastle United ruin that. So we just cracked on and had a cracking night. I totally forgot about the game about half an hour later. So it was all good.
Well, to be fair, Alan looked like a Newcastle fan who didn't want to be a Newcastle fan once a red and white striped jersey was put onto him for his stag. Along with his little uniform. Photos are available, and we'll see how many of those we're going to put on the Irish Mags website. But it's going to be a lot more we don't put on the Irish Mags website as well.
God.
And speaking of which, there will also be more photos coming because we had a little team of people following us around for the majority of the morning and afternoon in the documentary that we're doing alongside Guinness and the Premier League. Not sure when it'll be released, but there will be more evidence to follow.
It might not be. It might not be released.
It might not be released. I can tell you the entire if the recording, if the experience for them and us was on the line this long, it went all the way up to the very end, and then the match happened, it dipped, and then it was the flattest post-game recording I think ever. But it was a very good depiction of life as an Irish Mag, which most of the time or often in this season has included the doom and gloom of the result as well as the highs and lows of traveling over to Newcastle.
It would be remiss of us as well also to not give a shout out to our president Tev. It was his birthday. That also was featured in, and he got a beautiful cake set up by the club and us, and I think it was actually nice to bring that together. That kind of put a double celebration on the whole thing. If we'd only just got scraped a nasty win, God knows we probably wouldn't even be here for this podcast. We'd still be in Newcastle celebrating, but it was nice to have both of them there to have a nice celebration like that.
It was, and we put in a rule after the match. We allowed about an hour of post-match discussion to take place, and then we said we'd never speak of it again for the rest of the day. And I think we succeeded fairly well, judging by my bank account. Newcastle has done very well, lads, out of me once more. As is the habit. I am not going back for the remainder of the season for many reasons, mainly because I'm broke. And let's move swiftly on. And we will have to talk about that game. We will use that to talk about, right, where the hell are we with the rest of the season in front of us? A really difficult game coming up the weekend against Arsenal. We know we have some loyal, religiously devoted Arsenal fans that listen to the Irish Mags show, lads, every single week. Shout out to Mark, one of my teammates that I was playing a match with yesterday, who's a Man United fan, and he also listens to the podcast. I just think he likes listening to me for whatever reason. That's not strange at all, Mark, but fair play. And we're expanding the pod, lads, to other fan bases as well as Newcastle and the Irish Mags. So hooray the Irish Mags show and hooray the lads. Right. We have to start off, lads, and just talk about the day. Apart from the result, everything was brilliant. But the result, just as we said, it put a big shadow on all of the events. We had a massive crowd traveling. We had a massive crowd in the stack before the game. Loads of photos, loads of flags, loads of drinks, loads of crack. And I genuinely, lads, and I don't know if I'm foolish, Crisho, but I was optimistic going in that game. Well, I'm very foolish. I was also very optimistic going into that game. I thought, right, this is just an occasion to come back to St. James's Park. Forget about everything, right? The games prior, it was like, right, we could still get into Europe. We can still get in the Champions League. For me, it was just, let's go and be Newcastle. unfortunately, we were Newcastle, but the worst version of ourselves once again this season. And is there any optimism left, I suppose, is my question.
I was sitting very close to you in the Leazes end, and you know, I was simmering a little bit. I was very excited. I was right on the edge of my seat, and then Alanga got the ball and ran it out of the off the side of the pitch, like he didn't actually know the dimensions of an actual pitch, or he didn't know what the sideline was for. I thought, okay, I'll give him one. That's okay. I'll give him one. Forward a minute and a half later, he gets it again. It hits him in the chest and goes out for a goal kick. I thought, all right, this is definitely not going to be our day. Bournemouth were, as Al likes to say, they were literally one step ahead of us. They were all over us. There was more desire. There was more quality. There was more tactical transitional play. They were better at defending. They were better on the attack. Take Bruno and Joelinton out of our midfield. It feels like you could drive a 18-wheeler truck through it. It was very poor. It was instantly tense. Frankly, after 5-6 minutes in the stadium, you could hear the moans and groans already, and it wasn't even within the 10 minutes of the game. It was just dreadful from start to finish. I think we all kind of summed it up at the end when we all exhaled when we met up, just in a kind of a group therapy session beside the Bobby Robson statue. It was dreadfully poor. I mean, like I've never, and lo and behold, that was the first loss I've ever seen live at St. James's Park. So that wasn't a great experience either. Great tickets, fantastic being there with everybody, but it was really poor. They, like some people suggested, they threw Eddie Howe under the bus there. I hate saying that expression, but it did seem like a lot of them just weren't ready to perform at all. Even Miley, who I think is a class player and has got great potential, he even looked out of his depth. He was shaking all over the place. He wasn't really doing much. And it was just all around generally very poor. It had a Sunderland smell about it, and we all know we don't want to get that smell in our noses, but it had a Sunderland smell about it, and it ended up being like the Sunderland game. Them snatching that ugly winner in the 85th minute. Right in front of us, Paul. Ugly as hell. But the passion and desire has gone. Frankly, I wish they would have just called the season at the end of the game and said, look, we're not going to play the last 5 games. Just forget it. I don't want to watch them. But yeah, sorry for being so negative.
Christo, don't worry. I sat 3 seats away from you in the Leazes. You were far more negative on the day than you are on the podcast today. I can tell you that much. And everybody around us had to deal with the wrath of Christo, particularly Alan against Anthony Alanga. At one point, Christo roared across towards me. So he was in the row behind me and then 3 seats over. And he just kind of shouted, it's bad enough he's shite on television, but he's even worse in the flesh. And look, honestly, it was true. I didn't think it would be possible for him to have a worse game this season, especially when we've seen glimpses of better from him. And obviously he got that brace against Barcelona. But I actually do think that was his worst performance of the season, especially because he was kind of in front of us, particularly me and Christo at the time.
Yeah, there's no redeeming factors from his performance for that game. At one stage, he was right in front of me. He tried to take his man on, made a hames of it. Ball broke back to him, and he had a 5-yard pass to Mighty, who was breaking into the box, and just gave it straight to the defender. It was, there was absolutely nothing went right for the poor young fella. Like nothing went right for him, but it was just really, really bad. Like singling Alanga out, yeah, but not one player on the pitch played well, and that's the end of it. Like we kind of robbed the goal with a lucky tackle by Evan Nielsen that broke through for Rasul. Like we didn't even create the goal we scored. It was devoid of any intention or ideas. It was just absolutely shocking from start to finish. They deserved to beat us.
They did deserve to beat us. And I remember saying, lads, when we came in after it, it dawned, it didn't really dawn on me, like as soon as it happened, I think Tonali took a shot which ballooned up into the Gallowgate. So it was the opposite side of where we were sitting in the Leazes. And that was, I want to say 50, 60 minutes. And I couldn't think it felt like that was our first shot of the whole game. And it didn't even go near the goal. And so you can't even call it a chance, but it was the first time we actually just had a shot. And yeah, like that from start to finish, it just felt impotent. It felt unorganized. It felt weak, uninspiring, unmotivated compared to a Bournemouth side who are well drilled, and who are playing for their manager and who are playing for their team. And we had no answers to it, whatever about the mentality of the players that started, even the decisions. And I'll come back to you again because I was baffled. Like, no matter what happens, whenever we play shite, Lewis Hall still puts in a 6 out of 7 out of 10 and doesn't really play poorly. He's hooked at half time. No mention anywhere of injuries. Still, even to now, I haven't heard any mention of injuries. So it was a tactical decision to hook Lewis Hall and bring on Trippier and then put Livramento, who's been really poor recently, never mind the rumours linking him with a move. And that none of that even worked either. And the one even more baffling decision then to me, I thought, Criscio mentioned there, no players really had a good game. You said, Al, but I thought Ramsey looked like the only one with a bit of spark. He looked lively in comparison to those who were looking asleep beside him. And then he gets hooked on 62 minutes when, I don't know, I mean, I'm looking at even at the team sheet here now just for the timings, but we mentioned Miley. I thought Miley was pedestrian the whole game. The passes he made were the simplest passes you could make. Like, it was all very, very safe. And we know, I remember in the past, we were harping on in a pod, I can't remember which game it was, where he had something like 100% pass completion rate in a particular game in the Champions League. He might have been playing right back. But, if you're sticking to that and you're just going to stay right, I'm going to keep my passing stats up by just passing to the defender behind me or the nearest lad. Like, when you're trying to get back into a game as well, I couldn't understand how he stayed on and Ramsey got hooked. And again, no mention of injuries, but just on those decisions, Al, whatever about the starting lineup, where again, he's fallen back on Asula, which looks like desperation because he's just given up on Voltamade and obviously Visa. Gordon obviously doesn't even make the squad. What were your thoughts on the lineup, Al? And then, those decisions, because I need a breather before I get angry.
Well, the decision to take to leave Lewis Miley on for so long, it just didn't make any sense. He, as you said, he was playing simple passes, but wasn't even getting them right half the time. He was sloppy on the ball, even with his simple passes. And then taking off Lewis Hall, bringing on Trippier, and then 5 minutes after he does that, Livramento breaks down again. Like, I don't know. In what world do you look at that and say, okay, Tino Livramento, who's already been out with 2 injuries this season, can have 90 minutes after coming back 3 weeks ago? If you're going to take off one of your fullbacks, you take off the one who's broken down and play a left back in left back and a right back in right back. It just didn't make any sense. Any sense.
Even with that, Al, like, you're looking at the options he has, and sure, there's players out. And Criscio, feel free to chime in, but there was a clamour for Bruno. You could feel the stadium clamouring for Bruno. Yeah. They were chanting his name when he was doing little jogs in the first half. They were chanting his name at half time. I'm looking at it, and obviously hindsight's a wonderful thing, but if he loves Miley, and Miley is a great player, and you know what you're getting from Miley's best games this season have been from right back. So which is better? You bring on Trips, who's had far too much football in the second half of the season, and you bring him on the right and put Tino over. And again, back in the early parts of the season, Tino was immense at left back. There was arguments that he's better left back than right back. But now when he's playing poorly and not fit, for me, I'm looking at it going, sure, keep Lewis Hall at left back, put Miley back at right back. There's your space to bring on Bruno. Like, if you're going to bring Bruno on, he brought Bruno on 60 or 62. Yeah. What's the difference between bringing him on 15 minutes earlier? Because not only were we clamoring to get back in the game and just start playing well, but just to lift the momentum. He came on, and with the 10 minutes that he was on, we looked a different team, right? Yeah. Not that we were hammering the shite of them or anything like that, but there was way more about us as soon as Bruno came on, and obviously it dies down again. But yeah, Criscio, I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
It's bizarre because, like I said at the top of the podcast, it feels like the lads, a lot of them threw him under the bus here. This game was a culmination of a season-long loss of trust between the manager and certain players and the way the manager does things and what they're being asked to do. There's 5 or 6 players within our squad that are regular players that I feel don't agree with what they're being told to do and don't agree with the way that they're playing and how they should play. As we said, it was very pedestrian and very boring. There was such anger from the stadium about how much we got into the final third, but didn't take a shot. didn't actually do anything incisive. It just kind of went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Didn't really go anywhere. And the substitutions are frankly bizarre. I said it a couple of podcasts ago, that classic saying of being, you can't see the wood for the trees. Eddie Howe, for the first time ever, and I think Alan Shearer made reference to it, looked lost on the sideline against Bournemouth. He looked completely devoid of confidence and ideas. He was clapping his hands like he usually does. He was going up and down the touchline, but the shine has come off. Yeah, there's a bit of rotten wood there. The shine has come off. I could see Harvey Barnes let everybody in that stadium down on Saturday. That was a shocking performance. Al, you said it to me after the game. That was really poor. He did nothing. He looked completely like out of his depth, like a championship player or something. Or no, that's offensive. A League One player. He looked all over the place. It was just completely devoid of anything. And then those substitutions just were the final kind of pancake flap against the wall for the whole stadium. People were absolutely baffled, completely baffled at what he was doing. Even bringing Bruno on, look, that was great. But if you and I and Al can sit here, okay, just from supporting Newcastle, and say, why did he move Miley back to right back? Leave Lewis Hall on, take Trippier off, and bring Bruno on. Why didn't Voltemade get a bit of a sniff? Why didn't Vissa? Is it really? Do you really believe, lads, that he's bought a team in, and at least four of the 6 signings he brought in are not good enough. They don't want to play for us. They don't know how to play for us, and essentially we're paying the price for 3-4 poor windows. So Bournemouth is the culmination of all of this. Sadly, we were there to witness it live, but that's as bottom as I hope that we're going to get, because that's really the bottom of the barrel. Sunderland loss was terrible, but that Bournemouth display was even worse than the Sunderland one.
And for me, it's even more reason, and sorry, listeners or viewers on YouTube might notice Al is just having connection issues. He's dialed in from a hotel because he's working, but we had to have him on because it was his stag at the weekend. So we'll see how quickly we can get him back. A huge thank you to our podcast sponsors of the Irish Mag Show. The Half Volley, providers of high-quality, customizable clothing and merchandise, catering for all sports teams, businesses, social clubs and events. FSH Training Limited, a team of expert frontline paramedics and firefighters delivering first aid, fire safety, manual handling and patient handling for all business environments. And JH Fitness, an Irish-based online coaching business specialising in sustainable fat loss, lifestyle change and long-term health for real-world men and women. Support local. Check out all of our partner sponsor links in the podcast description. Welcome back. We did lose Alan in the end. We wanted to bring him in just to talk about his stag. So we did manage to get most of his reaction. Myself and Craic could continue on. Just for me, Craic, on those points we were making about selection and about the decisions made by Eddie Howe, I couldn't help but think he's gone desperate. Eddie Howe's gone desperate in the sense that he's lost all faith in the likes of Voltemade and Vissa, particularly those two. But that desperation has led to him having to put his faith in a player he never had faith in the first place, which is Willa Sula. Willa Sula came on and scored a wonder goal against Man United. But let's face it, he's a moment's player and he's picked up a couple of goals, fair play to him, in the only chance he's got in either game and the only chance we've really created in those games. He doesn't get any chances. So he is, fair play to him, he's probably got 100% scoring on his XG because he just doesn't get any. But they're somewhat fortunate to an extent. Al mentioned there Evan Nielsen and Bournemouth I don't think it was Evan Nielsen, but Bournemouth basically kind of handed us that goal, and he's a bit of a bundler in of goals. For me to go back on when everyone's letting him down and he's got players on the bench, either what they're doing in training is giving him enough reason to go that they're not even trying in training, or they're shite. There's no point even starting them. Or it's just he blindly has lost faith, because I can't sit there and think that these are professional footballers who are, like Voltemade is a young lad who don't want to go and show the world what they can do on one of the biggest stages you possibly can. And to me, that's more valuable than the guys who are starting, who who aren't even given half enough.
Well,
And
let's
that's
call it what it
quality
is.
and that's desire.
Let's call it what it is, Paul. It's absolutely criminal. It's criminal. I mean, to think that I personally believe, and again, this is just my personal opinion, Wissa got a sniff of the place, got a sniff of the way that was played, doesn't want to play for Newcastle United. He made a mistake personally and professionally. Voltemada, exactly the same. Doesn't like being here, doesn't like North of England, doesn't like the Premier League.
But let me stop you there. If it's good enough for Bruno and Tonali to because Bruno and Tonali, among others, but if we focus on Bruno and Tonali,
yeah,
both of whom have been brilliant, barring Tonali's absence due to the old ban.
Tonali feels he owes us. He owes the fans.
Yeah, but they both have been brilliant for Newcastle. Why are other players able to come up and do it and not those? Which brings me back to, it's not just those individuals. There's more to it. Voltemade scored something like 9 goals in the first half of the season, and we won more games with Voltemade playing as a striker than we did without him over the course of that season. We picked up a lot of points with Voltemade.
That own goal that he scored against Sunderland destroyed the fella. He's only a young lad, destroyed him.
But that to me comes back to what are we doing about it, right? Because he's a young lad, and he's grasping the sense of the derby, and to have that there, you straight away you go, forget about that. Go and show us why we brought you here. Go and show us why loads of clubs were after you. Go and show us the player that was bullying defenders in the under-21s, Euros, or whatever it was. And then instead we've decided, we'll try and put you in midfield. We'll play out of position. We'll try and do what we did with Joe Linton, completely different scenarios. And then all he's doing is getting criticized for not playing well as a 10, as an 8. And when why aren't we saying, right, okay, go back up front because no other strikers are doing well? Granted, we fell onto Anthony Gordon for a while, and at times it worked a little bit, and at times it hasn't. How much worse could it be starting Voltemade up front than starting Osula up front? And again, that's, to me, it's hit and hope by Eddie Howe rather than any type of control or strategy.
Paul, somebody at the club must have been saying to Eddie Howe, you asked us for £125 million. We paid it for these two. Why are they sitting behind you every game? Why aren't you playing them? Like, what is he saying back to the PIF folk or the bosses, the senior management? Like, sorry lads, they're just not good enough. I made a mistake. I shouldn't have signed off on these signings. I made a mistake. They don't fit in, or he's being a very honourable man that he is, and he's protecting a young lad like Voltemade. And let's be frank.
What's he protecting him from? He's getting criticised. He'll get criticised if he doesn't play. He'll get criticised if he plays out of position. Play him as a striker. Let him get some confidence. He gets 1 goal, and he'll feel a lot better about himself. I just don't understand it. And everyone we spoke to, Christian, when we went over that morning over to Newcastle, and I was talking to Geordies, local people, fans, everyone's predicting, wanting, and hoping for Voltemade to start up front. That was happening in podcasts during the week, previewing the game. And once again, we've not seen it. And again, you can say, well, oh yeah, but Osula scored, but he's just offering not much else. And I think there's a bit of a kickback of that. There's not much quality there with him. It's far from me to he's a better footballer than I am. But at that level, at that pace, that quality that's needed in terms of the decision-making, in terms of the intelligence of a striker, the runs aren't there, the options aren't there. We're then going lateral. There's no confidence in the build-up play. We don't feel like we're going to score. We don't think we're going to score. And we're retreating into our shells, and we're half the team we were.
Let's just cut it, because we're coming up to the end of the season. So let's just cut the shit here, right? Let's just really cut the shit here, right? This team, Eddie Howe's team, and he rolled the dice, and he got snake eyes with this Isak, right? I hate saying it. This club was built around Isak. This project for the next 5 years was built around Isak, buying players to complement that, play a fast attacking style, Kevin Keegan-esque style. And it was all based around Isak. And then looking at replacements for Isak, or even second strikers, or something similar to Isak, that Isak could train up and help become the player like that he is. Liverpool coming in, like they did with Gini Wijnaldum, like they did with Malcolm McDonald, maybe not Malcolm McDonald, somebody else, I think it was Malcolm McDonald, years and years, doing with Andy Carroll as well. They Liverpool look at us. I don't know what kind of relationship we have at business or board level, but Liverpool can just come along and take whoever they want out of our team, any attacking players whatsoever. They've done it again last year, and they've just basically destroyed the project in one fell swoop. Okay, they've given us loads of money, but they've destroyed Eddie Howe's project for this season. And you can clearly see it, that whatever he bought in and around, now, A, he didn't have enough time to pick the right players. B, when he did bring them in, he didn't have enough time to get them within the tactics that he wanted, and he couldn't play the same way when he had Isak. Wissa getting injured, I think, is a bigger story than we're giving it credit for, because frankly, it looks to me like he came back half the player he was at Brentford. So we signed a Craic. Elanga is a stand on the halfway line and run after the ball against tired defenders and scoring goals for Notts Forest. That's not the player that we need or we wanted at Newcastle. He has literally no idea how to do link-up play. Another dud, 55 million. That's 110 million now of duds. Then you have 79 million pounds worth of a young German fella moving out of the country for the first time, coming to the northeast of England, the Goldfish Bowl. He scores a couple of goals, and then he scores one of the worst own goals that you could ever score against Sunderland for us to lose the game. Everything that could have gone wrong for Eddie Howe, and let's be frank about this and cut the shit, has gone wrong for him. Joe Linton's getting...
But then, you know, when you say that, is it like I don't think you're saying it's not his fault because everything that's gone wrong could have gone wrong. Everything has gone wrong because the decisions made that he was very much a part of. Yeah. Apart from obviously Isak leaving, right? That was what it was. Hindsight would tell you we should have cut our losses with Isak, sold him much earlier in the window, and then used that money and had more time. My counter argument to all of this is what happens in football. And if I look at the Premier League table on my other screen here, teams above us in very similar situations. Crystal Palace are currently ahead of us. They lost Eze. They lost Olise. They lost Guehi. They're ahead of us, right? Then if I keep going up the table, Brentford, their team was built around Brian Mbeumo and Wissa. They're ahead of us. They're currently 9th. Bournemouth, their team was built around Antoine Semenyo. They haven't lost a game since he left, and that was in January. Teams and managers in this league are able to adapt and react to these shit situations. And while you may say, yeah, we had a poor window and Eddie Howe and others who made the decisions to buy those players are to blame, but other clubs have been in this situation where they've lost key players and had to scramble to replace them. And not only have they managed without those players, they've actually, in some cases, thrived and caused a lot of shock and surprise. And we're still dwelling on this team was built around Isak and we've never managed to recover. It's nearly May. So the excuses go out the window.
You would agree, though, that we haven't recovered from selling Isak. We clearly haven't. What was bought into? There's
nothing to say we have. There's nothing to say we have in terms of we haven't tried to change anything. We've not really changed style of play. Eddie Howe hasn't really shown a lot. Occasionally he'll put 3 defenders in the hope that something different happens. But by and large, we haven't really done a whole lot to drastically change. We're still trying the same things.
Well, do you feel now squarely after us both sitting closely together and watching that garbage on Saturday that this does squarely fall now, even though the players definitely haven't performed for him and the new signings have nearly drowned in the Goldfish Bowl of Newcastle, to be honest with you? Do you think it squarely falls at the coaching staff and at Eddie Howe's feet?
I mean, if you're looking to blame, the players
I'm
deserve
not
as much blame.
No, I'm not looking to blame. I'm just looking for... Not blame. Blame's a horrible thing to be banned.
If you're looking for the solution, if you're looking for the solution isn't coming from Eddie Howe and the coaching team, right? And to the point where once again we're making the same substitutions. Once again we are reacting. Once again we are not trying to take games by the scruff of the neck. Who do we play before Bournemouth again? It was a Palace. Like again, you know, we're waiting for someone else to do something, i.e. score, either going ahead or equalizing, before then doing something. And it was completely summed up by trying to roll the dice, bringing on Wissa and Elanga on 90 fucking 2.5 minutes with 3 minutes to go. Insanity, right? So all these things for me mean that it's not a case that this is all Eddie Howe's fault, but Eddie Howe isn't showing anyone anything better in terms of fixing it. And all you can do is look forward. You use what's happening in the past to look forward. And this brings us back to the question, and it was brought out on Twitter, I think yesterday, was it I think it was Liam Kennedy that broke it. Dominic Skur was also sharing it, that the board remain confident in Eddie Howe, that he is the manager they want for next season, but obviously they will be reviewing in the summer, blah, blah. Nothing tragically new. But I don't feel like there's been anything this season in any kind of great shape or form to show here's where we've shown what we really can do in particular games. Everton away was the only really good game, and it was probably an 8 out of 10 performance by us. And we got through the Champions League, and fair play, but some really, really poor teams. Even Craic put us to the test in the end. We beat really poor teams like PSV, who they were terrible up against us. Benfica as well were really poor against us. This isn't us going out, and this wasn't us performing really, really well. This was other teams being a bit poor. So at no point can you say we can see what we're trying to do, because it's gotten progressively worse. The Chelsea performance was a defensive performance, and that worked really well. But that's in isolation, because we have been atrocious defensively all season.
So it's just short-sightedness then, essentially what it is. It's short-sightedness by the club as a whole to not provide the man that brought a trophy for the first time in 70, domestic trophy in 70 years, to not give him the tools to do his job. Also leaving him in a terrible position last summer where he basically was running the club by himself, even though he should have been on holidays. It's complete short-sightedness. And to be honest with you, how are we going to start phase 2, Eddie? Are we going to be on a roll and getting 5th and 6th and in the Champions League again and keep going and attracting good players? Eddie's going to probably saying to the Hopkinson guy, no, the best thing we can do is not qualify for anything next season and just have the FA Cup, Carabao Cup, and just have a full Premier League season where I can train with the guys 3-4 days a week.
We did that last season, right? And granted, we got into the Champions League, but by a hair. As in literally by a goal.
But
we didn't have any control of.
But Isak gave up after the Carabao Cup final.
Loads of other players appear to be giving up, and again, you come round to phase 2. It needs a phase 2, because clearly our phase 1 was getting 2 Champions Leagues and winning a trophy. Fair play, Eddie Howe. Like, he did wonders with having feck all. But when he's been given a lot more, granted we lost Isak, but if we'd have kept Isak and then he got injured, what was going to happen then? Right? Are we back to trying to squeeze in Asula and Gordon and just playing a bit shit? Like, you can't really fall back on that. So for me, it's a case of how do you go into a new phase where there's going to be a lot of new things happening, but you can't keep doing the same. And I feel like if we keep Eddie Howe, we might bring in different players, and you might have Ross Wilson more involved in bringing in some good players. But I don't see over the course of the last 12 months, even 18 months, where there's been probably a lot more bad than good performances, especially in this season. There's no evidence of things will actually look and feel a lot different on the pitch, tactically, decision-making, the inspiration, the fire in the back. Like, it's just gone so flat. And sometimes it's been 4 years. This isn't like back in the 90s where you're Arsene Wenger or Alex Ferguson. Managers stuck around for a long time and they were able to keep going through those new phases. It just doesn't really happen anymore. It happens for Pep Guardiola. Why? Because Pep is doing what he's doing, and when they have a dip, they dive in and they buy our Omar Marmoush last January for 70-75 million, best player in Europe. Happens again in January. They go and they buy Semenyo and Gahey, and that's probably one of the best defenders and arguably the best player at the time. Semenyo just goes and gets them because they can do it for PSR reasons. We can't do that. So therefore, that idea of, well, we can keep the manager and we can actually change and revitalize. I think a new manager is needed to do that. And we've seen other clubs do that.
So phase 2 is new manager and 9 to 10 new players. Whoever that new manager
You'd love
wants.
9 to 10 new players, but it's rare you see that. I mean, the only time you really see that level of change is when teams get promoted, like Sunderland or Nottingham Forest. Chelsea have been doing it in the worst way possible because that guy thinks he's playing Football Manager who runs that team.
Yeah.
For us, it's a case of we need to make some smart decisions in terms of, right, who's going to be part of this phase 2 going forward. And we need to then be early, really looking at it, going, what do we need this team to look like going into next season? And where do we need to start making smart moves now? Because we've invested huge amounts of money overall in a lot of players that haven't worked out. And you could apply that to Harvey Barnes, right? Harvey Barnes cost 40, 50 million, scored some big goals, won us some games. But if you look at the longevity of how long he's been there, has he been a 8 out of 10 signing? I don't know. A lot of the time, Eddie Howe hasn't started him. Why? So they're the kind of questions you got to start asking. And that's why I think I'm at the point where I don't want to go and say sack Eddie Howe. I think an honest conversation needs to be happening.
You're close to it.
Where are we going? Where are we going?
He's
close to getting himself sacked. I'm very close to it because we've lost 5 out of 6 home games and we're getting beaten by everyone. We are the gift that keeps on giving. Bar Tottenham, it's us. Teams want to play us. Arsenal want to play us at home this weekend in their place.
I have 2 Arsenal fans very close, and they are licking their lips at this game. They really feel like that this is a real payback for those semi-final results last year. Is it last 2 years ago? That this could be a whopper, like a hammering.
Well, let's use that as a segue to talk about the Arsenal game, because I'm also going to be watching it with those pesky Arsenal fans who listen to the show. So let's move straight into that, and we'll come back and talk about our trip to the Emirates, which is a big game. I don't want to say it's a big game for us, but it's kind of
big game for the league.
A lot could go wrong, but it's a big game for Arsenal. It's an even bigger game for the Premier League race, which we may have a say in. We'll be right back. Krisho, Arsenal are in the process, as everyone likes to joke about, of bottling the league title. They were at one point, were they 10 points clear? Were they 12 points clear?
I don't think we can talk about it because we did it, 25 years ago.
We were the last ones that did it at such scale, back in the 90s. Of course we were. But we are where we are, and Man City, the inevitable Man City, as I'm looking at the table here, they're both on 70 points. They're both on a goal difference of 37. City have scored 3 more goals. Arsenal have conceded 3 less. It's so tight. 21 games won, each 7 draws, 5 losses. It could come down to goal difference. And I hate to say it, as I've just said, Arsenal, if they were to look at it, go, who do we want to bring in at home here? Barring a Wolves or a Burnley, and probably Spurs, they wouldn't want to play Forest. They wouldn't want to play Leeds, who are in good form at the moment. They wouldn't want to play Fulham, who are consistent and solid. Sunderland are a good away team, as are Palace. They would want to play us. And hey, they are going to play us. Is there anything inside you that thinks we have a chance of obviously upsetting them? But more importantly, if we just take a step back from what they're playing for and what's going on in the league, the ability to travel down to London, to go to a top 6 team, a top 4 team, top 2 at the moment, in the Emirates in London, and actually grind out a result. Is it a case of, wouldn't it be typical that we would go and do that, playing shite?
It is typical, Would that we go down and
do you have any?
The game?
Is there anything that gives you any confidence that we could do that right
now? No, I'm sorry for you. I'm glad Al isn't here to hear this. And I know many people that were around us on Saturday did hear me say this, but I'm done for the season. Even though I'm going to the West Ham game again to blind myself with bleach to watch this another home game. But I hate to be uber negative, but after the literal shit show that was last Saturday, I'd be literally astounded if we did anything even slightly different to how we played in the last 3 or 4 or 5 games. Arsenal are going to tear us apart like a sharing bread in a restaurant. They're going to pull us apart. And I'm really, really concerned about this because they lost to Man City. And, Arteta's going to absolutely, set them up in a way that they destroy us and get goal difference on top of that. Again.
Well, let me stop you there. Let me stop you there, because while I have no confidence in Newcastle's ability to go and get a result, Arsenal's last 5 games, 2-1 defeat away to Man City, a 0-0 at home to Sporting Lisbon, Champions League. Granted, it was second leg, but it was only 1-0 in the first leg. A 2-1 defeat in the Emirates by Bournemouth, who were just taking points off everyone for fun. They had that 1-0 win over Sporting. Fair play to them. They lost 2-1 to Southampton in the FA Cup quarter-final with a relatively strong team, all things considered. And they lost in the League Cup final, is that 6 games, against Man City. So they've had 1 win. Sorry, 2 wins if you count the Sporting one. It was narrow. No, sorry, that's only one. They've had 1 win in 6 games, right? So their form is really poor at the moment. Now they are a far superior side to us. Whether or not they have a far superior manager, I would rate him as a manager if he wasn't such a like a toy that was wound up that just loses. It's ridiculous, really, what he does on the sideline. I think he's the cause of a lot of their problems. As much as he's done well to bring them to where they are, there's no composure and there's no maturity when it comes to what
he loses this league. He will not be the manager of Arsenal in June. He will not be the manager of Arsenal. No doubt about that.
What a situation to be in. Imagine if Eddie Howe had us finishing second in the league, even if we bought.
Well, I'll tell you what, John, would be interesting. Imagine they did sack him and brought in Eddie Howe. There you go. Take that. They bring in Eddie Howe to be the manager of Arsenal. Take that to all the Arsenal fans listening. You know what I mean? That might happen.
Yeah.
But look, I know what you're saying. They're on a poor run of form. It's just that we couldn't be playing them at a worse time. If I'm perfectly honest with you, you'd think to yourself, well, Christian, they're having bad form. No. They know now. I mean, talk about cold water in your face. They know now that this is slipping away. They've got to come out hard, fast, and get at us. And I frankly think that we're like an injured puppy. We're going to get kicked around that because no Joelinton again. I think he's got still one game to go. I'm not sure if Bruno can start. Maybe he can. That might be a plus, a bit of a lift for us. But
there's also talks that Gordon and Livramento won't be in the side either, and for injury reasons or whatever, both of whom are heavily linked to moves away, which we are going to talk about next week on the podcast, because there's so much talk starting to gear up about players leaving, and then we're starting to also be linked with players, even though I can't see how anything would ever happen until we sort out
what was
future
it,
in the manager's situation.
Marcus Tavernier, I think, was today. I swear to God, I saw it. There was a lot of noise.
He just scored against us and beat us in our own ground. Why the hell does he want to go to Newcastle? Anyway, save the transfers for next time. But I agree. I mean, it's hard to see us doing anything against them. However, they've been in poor form that you could imagine that either we go there and just hold them long enough to frustrate them, or both teams are just kind of all over the shop and it finishes 3-3 or something ridiculous. But I will ask you for a score prediction, and also do you think there's like any type of surprise from Eddie Howe or anything that Newcastle could do that might inspire some kind of change in fortune, or are we goosed?
I honestly, like Arsenal's defense midfield, not so much their attack, but their defense and midfield are world class. Their goalkeeper, world class. And Arsenal's defense are attacking without Gordon. Barnes on poor form. Asula, all arms and elbows, barely staying on side and just nose bleeding and all over the place. I would be astounded if we even had a shot on target or a shot at all within the first 45 minutes. Do I see him doing anything different? No, I don't. Do I think okay, he has no pride left, we're just going to run out to the end of the season? No, I don't think so. I mean, obviously he's going to set the team up to at least, not get beaten 7-0. But I have an awful feeling that, if you really wanted to make a point, you could throw Wissa and Voltamata to the dogs, essentially against Arsenal, and just go, right then, you don't play form well in training, you don't want to be here. Well, you're playing against Arsenal, so go and enjoy that and see how well you get on. I'd like to see that, frankly. I really would like to see Wissa and Voltamata. On Twitter, there was a photograph that somebody took 2 days ago of training. It looked like Miley was at right back, and it looked like Voltamata and Wissa were playing up top. So there might be, it might be the biggest change in the starting lineup that we've ever seen. Because to be honest with you, it's all caution to the wind now. It's like we basically ruined our season. So play whoever, who cares? Just throw them up there. If we end up playing Wissa and Voltamata, they both get 2 goals each, and we beat Arsenal 4-1. I don't know how to talk. I don't know how to talk about football anymore. I don't really.
No, we might take a break. Well, I mean, we'd have to take a break from the Irish Mag show if that happened, because I don't know if I'll ever get over it. I mean, I don't even have faith in Eddie Howe, even, and I don't know if tactically it would make sense to play them both, but I have no faith in Eddie Howe even making changes to that extent, let alone them going and scoring 2 goals each, because I don't think they'll be on the pitch to do that.
Isn't that damning? Absolutely damning. Nearly a year on.
You can only go by what you've seen.
I know, but nearly a year
go by what you've seen.
From us being practically hungover 3 days later, celebrating the cup final thing and everything else, and going on about Eddie Howe and going on about the team. And this,
Yeah.
A year later, you've just said, I don't have any faith in Eddie Howe.
I don't have any faith. Sorry, to clarify, I don't have faith in him to make any type of changes to the extent you're making out, which is like if Voltamati and Whistler to come on and just kind of shock everyone, surprise everyone. Eddie Howe hasn't done anything to surprise anyone tactically, bar making changes none of us expected and it not really working out. That's where I've lost the faith, as opposed to going balls to the wall. I am going to play Voltamati and Vissa because Barnes hasn't given me anything, because Alanga's not giving me anything. I'll put Vissa on the left, I'll put Voltamati up top, I'll put Jacob Ramsey in as a free roaming 10. I don't any faith in him to do any of those things. For me, it's just going to be, we'll go and we'll do what we know. And what we know so far, Chris, it hasn't worked.
Wissa on the left, Voltamati up top right, Barnes on the right, Ramsey, Tonali, and Bruno in the middle, Miley at right back, Hall at left back, whoever you wish to put in the centre, and Ramsdale or Pope to give him one final game before we say goodbye to him. That kind of a change I'd love to see, because then if we did lose, at least we could kind of go, well, didn't he try something different? I'd love to see Wissa on the left like he played for Brentford and see how he gets on. I'd love to see how that would go. But if I'm going to text you on this Saturday about when we get the team sheet, we can just have a quick. I'm just going to send you a sad face, because I think me and you both know it's probably going to nearly be Jacob Murphy's going to be the captain. He's going to be playing right wing. Do you know what I mean? And I'll just be like, oh lads, we are scraping all kinds of barrels here.
Yeah, so we want change, which is like, and again, it's not because Vissa has done anything to deserve it. We just don't see anyone else that does deserve it. So you're talking about a change, or a drastic change would be Voltamati, Wissa, and like you said, maybe Barnes on the right, because Gordon's not there. But it's more likely we see Osula and Murphy and Barnes, or maybe he throws Joe Willock on the left just for old time's sake. That's where we are. Do you know what I mean? So, score prediction.
Wow, Jesus! I wrote up the article for the newsletter before we hopped on to the podcast. My prediction, sadly, was 4-1 to Arsenal.
I can see us scoring against them because they're just having such a wobble. So maybe something like a 3-1 or a 3-2. Selfishly, because I'm going to be in the company of Arsenal fans, I would just love some goals for Newcastle to celebrate, because I'm going to be outnumbered by 3-1. Our loyal 3 listeners, they're all down in Galway for the weekend. So if it goes completely south, lads, if it goes south, Chris, they're not leaving Galway. Let me just put that way.
Oh, I'm outnumbered. I'm outnumbered on Saturday too. Like, I mean, I know Al usually here is community manager, but like we will be down the Bleecker Street Bar on Saturday. I won't. Paul, you'll be in Galway. I know Al will, and Tev and the guys and everybody. So do pop in and see us. My better half is an Arsenal fan, and so are some of our family, so are some of our friends. So I am in for a torrid time on Saturday. The dread of it all, especially like with Joe Linton not playing. I just really think, if Bournemouth can drive an 18-wheeler through our midfield, imagine what Arsenal's midfield can do. My God, I mean, honest to God.
Yeah, look, the only thing that might, if you could fall back onto a glimmer of hope, maybe Tonali just comes in and is a match winner in this game, or as we said, somebody like Harvey Barnes finds that goal scoring form. But again, we just haven't seen it for a while. But we need something like that to get a result here, and just be a little bit better defensively, because we have had more holes than Swiss cheese. Bring back Fabian Scher on that note. Right, Chris Show.
Right.
That brings an end to episode 123.
Thank God.
Thank you, Chris Show, for joining me and Alan before we lost him. Listener, if you got this far as well, sorry we lost Alan, especially if you're in the Alan Williamson fan club. All his family that we know that tune in. He will be back next week. Depending how this result goes, we'll either have a lot to talk about or very little different to talk about, but we will be having a chat about just some early transfer talk, particularly around outgoings, because that's
we have to get excited. We have to get excited, Paul. We have to get excited somehow. This has been a talk about final nail in the coffin. That was at Sunderland. The coffin's been well sealed. I don't see any air getting in and out of that coffin. So we need to have some excitement. We need to talk about something exciting.
Easter has already came and went, so I don't know if the resurrection is going to come in Newcastle United, but we'll take it if it comes against Arsenal on Saturday, 5:30 kickoff. The Bleecker Street Bar is where the Irish Mags will be. I'll be around Galway with 3 red jerseys. Chris will be floating around Dublin somewhere depressed. So do your best to get out, and we'll support the lads either way, as depressed as we are. And all we can do is hope and pray. Check out the irishmags.com. We're going to try and get those photos up in the next few days from the weekend in Bournemouth, because there was crack had. Yes, other than that, Chris, thank you very much. Away the lads. Slán go full. And we'll see you all very soon.
Good luck.